Hello everyone and welcome to this brand new edition of the Climate Clock where we discuss sustainability, climate change, ESG and a lot more. Today we are joined by Eugène Klerk, who is the head of global ESG and thematic research at Credit Suisse, and he is joining us from the 25th Credit Suisse Asian Investment Conference. And he has written a very interesting report which highlights preference of India's young consumers towards sustainable goods. Mr. Klerk, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and it is a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we all know that yes, the world is moving and talking more about sustainability and ESG. But your report talks about granular details as to which segment of the population is really moving towards sustainability in reality. Tell us about the key findings, especially in the context of the Indian economy.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking. And again, thank you for having me. Maybe to put some context around the report that we've done, we've decided to look specifically at younger consumers. And with that, I mean Generation Z and millennials. Reason for doing that is because we believe that over the next 10 to 20 years, they are the consumers that will make a difference. Our estimates suggest that total consumer spending globally will be driven by them, about 70% over the next 20 years, which is a significant increase from where we are today. The report also then goes into 10 individual countries or consumers living in 10 individual countries, 5 in emerging countries and 5 in the developed world. And when we look at these consumers from a high level, what is abundantly clear is not only that they are very concerned about the environment, but more important than that, I think, and certainly a surprise to us, to be honest, was the fact that those consumers living in the developing world are far more engaged with sustainability than younger consumers across the developed world. And particularly in countries like Mexico, India, and China, that's really where we noticed the greatest degree of engagement with sustainability.
So tell us, which are these segments where these young consumers are ready to pay more? Is it a long-term expenditure? Is it fast-moving goods? You spoke about fast fashion as well in the report. What are they really preferring?
Yeah, so we looked at into 5 different areas of consumer spending. We've done a lot of work over the last sort of 12 months as part of our ESG efforts into the personal footprint, and you can break it down basically into, I guess, 5 different areas. Food, obviously, fashion, travel. We also looked into housing-related expenditures, for example. And when we do that, we do find that the area where consumers are gravitating most towards is among the travel space in electric vehicles. And actually India scores #1 here in terms of the willingness to move to electric vehicles and away from the sort of more traditional vehicles. Another area where we've seen a significant level of interest in new technologies, as it were, relates to building energy efficiency. And there we're talking about solar panels, for example. So technologies that will reduce the need for fossil fuel related electricity generation, for example, and that may also over the long run lead to lower prices, which, given the fact that oil and gas prices currently are very high, is quite significant.
Yes, people are making a change, or at least preferring to do that. What, according to you, could be a risk to this? Technology, education, and that is something you've mentioned in your report as well.
Yeah, I think that one of the key observations of our report is perhaps not that younger consumers are concerned, because that is probably what you would expect. However, when you then dive into some of the answers around a change in food consumption, the willingness to make a change in terms of fashion, for example, we do find that some of the answers suggest that, in our view, there is probably a lack of understanding of the environmental footprint of these products and services. Our survey also suggests that the moment consumers become engaged, the moment they become concerned, they do become a lot more active in trying to not only change their own behavior, but importantly, persuade others to do exactly the same thing. So when we bring it all together, one of our key conclusions is that there is a significant need for governments and perhaps broader media institutions to educate the various sort of populations around the world around the environmental footprint of products and services. So education, in our view, is absolutely critical in achieving long-term climate change targets.
You briefly touched on the EV rush. Are millennials participating in that? Because we've been seeing that EV numbers, the sales are going up in India. What is the Indian contribution as far as overall EV demand is concerned?
Yeah, I think as far as the sort of the transport sector is concerned, the area that is seen to be the most popular with younger consumers, and particularly the Generation Z, more than the millennials, interestingly enough, is indeed electric vehicles. And so what we believe will happen is that the entire supply chain is likely going to see an uplift over the next 5 to 10 years because of this. This is not just electric vehicles manufacturers, but obviously also those that provide individual components into this area, including the battery manufacturers. Related to it, obviously, is the idea of energy storage, clearly relevant for electric vehicles, but actually in a much broader setting, energy storage is an area that we believe is going to be critical, not only for electric vehicles, but also for sort of housing related renewable electricity generation. It needs to be stored, and therefore technologies associated with it will need to be developed further in order to achieve both these transition-related activities.
Mr. Klerk, we are in a scenario where we are talking about higher commodity prices, whatever is happening to the supply chain. And whenever we talk about this and our dependence on fossil fuels, the debate that comes up is that move towards sustainability will definitely cause greenflation. What are your thoughts on that? Is sustainability inflationary? If not, why do you think so? And you think in the longer run, this is something that we would hear more often than we would actually think?
It's a question that comes up regularly with investors as well. The one thing I would say, though, is that currently, probably with the exception of some of the renewable related technologies, but sustainable products and services tend to be more expensive than traditional products and services. The reason for that is typically a lack of scale. There isn't enough of renewable products and services produced relative to traditional, and hence the production cost tends to be higher. So if anything, what I actually will believe will happen is that with a capital shift towards the sustainable space, the ability for companies to increase their capacities and to achieve greater economies of scale should lead to falling prices for sustainable products and services. So almost quite sort of interestingly, you are likely going to see a deflationary impact because of the move to sustainability, purely because at present, these products and services are more expensive than traditionals. And so I think what we need to see happening is a reallocation of capital towards those areas that are in the process of developing new technologies and products that make the world more sustainable. And once that happens, which we believe will, then we will see prices actually not necessarily increasing, but actually coming down.
All right, Mr. Klerk, that is actually a contradictory view that I've received from you as far as greenflation is concerned. Thank you so much for your opinion and your analysis today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you
so
very
that's
much
the word
indeed.
coming in from Credit Suisse, where Indian consumers or Indian young consumers are actually likely to spend more on sustainable products. So that's the outcome of this particular report. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Climate Clock. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18.